a simple life, something out those aches and pains from working on the farm.
Hey guys, it's Eric. Hey, today we're going to be checking out this. This is the Central Machinery or Harbor Freight 1 1/4 cubic foot cement mixer. Harbor Freight also makes a larger one that mixes two 80-pound bags of concrete. This one's designed for a 60 to 80-pound bag of concrete, one at a time. And that's fine for what I'm going to be doing because we have a pretty big project, and we'll get into that later on, but I'll be mixing about 3.5 pallets worth of concrete with this thing. So I hope it holds up to my opinion of some of the other Harbor Freight stuff that I've opened and owned. Today though, we're going to put this thing together, we're going to take a look at it. So if you want to buy one of these, I found a lot of assembly videos for the larger model, but well, let's go through and figure out if the smaller one's similar or more difficult. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. We'll just lay everything out on the ground here. We'll change the camera angle. What was really cool about this, which I was really surprised, was that I had this thing shipped to the house for $6.99 because none of the local stores had it. And it's about 70 pounds worth of stuff. So the fact that they were willing to ship it without making me pay like an extra freight fee or whatever is really nice. Okay, so here we go. For cement or mortar use only, do not use 2-part epoxy resin mix in this machine. Okay, well here it is all laid out. There's a few extra pieces here that I wasn't aware I'd have to assemble, but there's nothing here so far that scares me. This being our bottom piece, it does want me to set this up first, and it's kind of universal, it doesn't matter. They have holes and brackets in exactly the same places. So on the one end, and we'll make this the front, we're going to want to install this, which is our front peg for like holding things in place. Tool wise, it looks like we're going to be using 14s, 12s, and 10s, at least from the looks at it. I also have a pair of pliers here because there are some cotter pins, and you're going to want to use those cotter pins and bend them out. Sometimes it's hard to do by hand. So let's go ahead and get started assembling this. Most of the bolt heads are 14s, and the nuts are 12s or 14s. And that's a 12 on this one. Now we're using washers on each side and a lock washer on the side with the nut. So once you got those first two bolts installed, well, we're going to move on to the back, and this is where our wheels go. There is some assembly before we install that part, and here's our wheel bracket. Alright, now that I've got it greased up, you've got these 4 mega washers here, we'll call them. Oops. One goes on the inside, then you place your wheel in. One goes on the outside, and then you're going to use your cotter pin. You go through the center hole there. That's what I'm going to use my pliers for to bend those out. Once I've got your wheels in place, then you can go ahead and install this into the main bracket. Again, using the same large washer on the outside, smaller washer on the inside. Then a lock washer, and then the nut. So with the leg set up, from the factory it actually comes with these 2 brackets already kind of attached, but we're going to be hooking up this and this, and these just slide down into the bracket. It says with help, but that didn't take a whole lot of effort at all. So then we're going to go ahead and tighten down these 2 bolts. And we'll be ready to attach our motor. So once the bottom of our barrel is on here, the next step is to install this arm here, which is going to allow us to lock things in place. And those require 2 bolts and 2 washers. This piece just kind of slides on there. It's fairly self-explanatory. And now we're ready to install the handle itself, which is this piece. And it came with an Allen head and a spring that was just sitting down inside of there. So the spring just sits in there, and you have to kind of press down in order to slide in what we got to get in there next. Alright, so that spring puts tension on it to lock it in place, so that's really nice. That's pretty much it. One last thing here on this side, we're just installing this. And we're ready to move to the other side. So next up, we'll be fitting this piece. And I don't know why, but they're saying these parts don't actually get attached until later on, but these kind of connect the lower to the upper halves. These are our mixing handles. There's 2 of those. But for right now, they just want us to install this. But there's a catch, and it doesn't come with this. There is a gasket that sits right here, and that is this. It has to be attached to the upper half in order to seal properly, and it has to be held with adhesive of some type in order to lower it down onto this. That's the first trick, and I have something I'm going to put on here. I won't show you that, but this is basically Permatex or caulk. The second thing is the arrows here have to line up with each other, like so. And if you do that, well, then the bolt holes line up properly. And it may be hard to see on this film here, but right here and on the bottom, on both sides, is where our mixing blades actually bolt to the upper and lower half. So if you get this off a tooth or off one bolt hole, it won't go together properly. You have to take it all the way back apart. So let me go ahead. I'm going to put that gasket on, and I'll lower it down on there. There it is. Not exactly the easiest thing to do, I will admit. Let's go ahead and get some bolts in it. That gasket's just kind of puckered with age, you know, so it doesn't want to. What I'm going to do is go ahead and install all the nuts and bolts before I tighten anything down. Because the gasket, you can see it's already moved a little bit down in here, but I can still kind of wiggle it back into place, I think. You don't want to go crazy with these because you don't want to tear that gasket. Looking good. So, can't really show you, but these have to go in here. One bolt goes through the bottom and one bolt goes through the top. So I'm going to go ahead and install those 2 before moving on. But we're getting there.
Well, now that we got those 2 pieces installed, we're ready to move on.
Now, I think most of what we have left is right here. So let's take a look again, see what it says. My guess would be that part's probably going on next. This is our base plate. It sits in here and it's adjustable. It's for tension on the belt when it finally gets installed. So you do want to have a support on the other side of it, and that's this piece. And then the bolts with washers go through the back. Once we have our bottom plate here installed, it's time to install our upper pulley, our flywheel here, and that comes with a key. So make sure that when you install it, make sure to put the key in there or it will free spin. Cool. Then we'll slide our belt on, and it sits in the V there. We're ready to attach it to the motor and put our final cover on. So this bracket's way too low. I'll go ahead and make some adjustments here. Okay, and I don't know that I was filming, so I apologize if I wasn't, but the piece that I put on here is this bottom bracket. It's just 2 bolts on the back that hold that, and it slides up and down. The reason it does so is here's our motor. It sits on there pretty firmly, and here is our pulley, and there's a belt that runs across it. As you can see, as I rotate this, the drum rotates with it. The up and down and the back and forth here is to give you clearance so that you don't accidentally hit the back of it or put too much torsion or tension on the belt itself by pulling too far back. Once you've got all that tightened down, you're done. It's looking like it's almost finished, and it is. This is all we have left. That's our cover. In the cover is our on-off switch and our circuit breaker. Both of those are waterproofed, and I appreciate them doing that. What I am a little concerned about, and I guess it's going to be okay, is that water could somehow get in here while you're spraying it with a garden hose and get to that motor. There's no gasket for it, so apparently it's not necessary, but I'll go ahead and install these last few nuts and bolts, and we'll be ready to turn it on and run it. In another video, I'll be using it. In fact, I'll be using the heck out of it. I've got 3 pallets of 60-pound bags of ready mix coming up, and that'll be here in a couple weeks, and we're going to be pouring a 3-inch by 8 foot, or I guess it's 9 foot, by 30 foot pad. So a huge project for such a small mixer. And I have my reasons for getting the smaller of the 2 mixers I'll get into in that video if you want to follow along. But at this point, we're about there. I just need to tighten up these last few bolts, and we'll be ready to turn it on and see how it spins. There it is. I'll take one last look at this, and we're ready to plug it in and fire it up. Hopefully everything works. All right, I've got it plugged in. We're ready to give it a shot. Here we go. Beautiful. So that little sound where it gets a little louder than in the other spots, there was some damage in shipping, just a minor bend. And I can see that it makes deeper contact with the teeth on this motor under here during that spin. But I think it's just a noise issue. I'm not going to do anything about it. I think I'd probably make it worse instead of better by trying. So there it is. Time will tell whether this was a worthy investment or not. And that time will be in a few weeks, so check it out, stick around for part 2. And for tonight, my friends, that'll do it. I'll see you next time.